Commander Keth stood on the bridge of the Vorthan warship Dominator, watching the smoldering ruins of the human outpost on the planet below. The debris fields scattered across the research facility's former location told the story of their 3-day siege, a story that should have filled him with pride. Instead, something gnawed at his consciousness, a persistent doubt that refused to be silenced. "Final casualty reports, Commander," announced Sub-Commander Vex, his 4 eyes gleaming with what should have been satisfaction. "We lost 47 vessels, including 3 heavy cruisers. Nearly 8,000 warriors fell in the assault." Kef's mandibles clicked in frustration. 8,000 of the Empire's finest warriors dead, for what the intelligence reports had claimed was a minor human research facility. The numbers didn't make sense, no matter how he calculated them. And the humans? Keth asked, though he already knew the answer would only deepen his confusion. "Total enemy forces eliminated, 11 individuals," Vex replied, his voice carrying the same bewilderment that plagued every officer on the bridge. 10 researchers and 1 security officer, according to our preliminary scans. 11 humans had crossed the Third Fleet, nearly a tenth of its strength. Keth had commanded fleets across a dozen star systems, had broken the defenses of warrior races that had fought for centuries. Never had he encountered resistance like this. The holographic display showed the tactical replay of the battle. The human facility had been nothing more than a cluster of prefabricated buildings, nestled in a mountain valley. No obvious defensive structures, no military installations, no signs of the fortress-like resistance they had encountered. Yet for 3 days, those 11 humans had turned their simple research station into a nightmare of improvised warfare. "Show me the weapon analysis again," Keth commanded. The tactical officer's tentacles danced across his console, bringing up a detailed breakdown of the human armaments. What he saw defied every principle of military logic he had learned in his centuries of service. "They used mining explosives to create orbital bombardment shields," the officer reported, his voice filled with professional disbelief. "Somehow reconfigured their atmospheric processors to generate electromagnetic pulse fields. Their research laboratory's particle accelerator was modified into a weapon system that could penetrate our heavy armor." Keth studied the data, his mind racing to comprehend the implications. These weren't military engineers or weapons specialists. These were scientists, researchers studying soil samples and atmospheric composition. Yet they had taken equipment designed for peaceful exploration and turned it into instruments of war with a creativity that bordered on the impossible. "The human they call Blake," Keth said, referring to the security chief who had orchestrated the defense. "What do we know about him?" "According to our intelligence, he was a single security officer assigned to protect the research team from wildlife and natural hazards. No military background in our files, no advanced combat training, no tactical education. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Sci-Fi stellar conflict is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you're hungry for HFY battles and tales of human valor against alien might, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring these frontlines to you. The silence on the bridge grew heavy as each officer contemplated the same impossible truth. A security guard and 10 scientists had held off the Third Fleet of the Vorthan Empire for 72 hours. They had destroyed nearly 50 warships, killed thousands of elite warriors, and forced the Empire's most decorated fleet to resort to orbital bombardment to claim victory. "Commander," Vex said quietly, "perhaps we should reconsider our intelligence about human military capabilities." Keth's compound eyes fixed on the tactical display, where the aftermath of the battle played out in stark detail. The humans had fought with a ferocity that defied explanation, using tactics that seemed to come from nowhere, improvising weapons and strategies that his military academy had never taught him to counter. "Contact the intelligence division," he ordered. "I want every scrap of information about human military doctrine, their fleet compositions, their standard unit designations, everything." As his communications officer began transmitting the request, Keth couldn't shake the feeling that he had just made the worst mistake of his military career. If 11 humans could do this to his fleet, what could their actual military forces accomplish? The answer to that question would haunt him in ways he couldn't yet imagine. The interrogation chamber aboard the Dominator was designed to break the will of even the most hardened warriors. Its walls pulsed with psychic dampeners. Its atmosphere was carefully calibrated to induce anxiety in most known species. And its lighting system could trigger involuntary fear responses in creatures across the galaxy. Dr. Lisa Stone sat in the center of it all, her left arm in a makeshift sling, her face bearing the cuts and bruises of 3 days of desperate combat. She looked remarkably calm for someone who had just watched her entire research team die defending their small outpost. Commander Keth entered the chamber, flanked by his chief interrogator and a squad of guards. The human's eyes tracked his movement with an alertness that unnerved him. After everything she had endured, after losing everyone she had worked with, after seeing her life's work reduced to burning rubble, she still carried herself with a quiet dignity that he found deeply unsettling. Dr. Stone, Keth began, his translator rendering his words into human speech. You fought well, your team fought well. The Empire respects courage, even in its enemies. Lisa's laugh was bitter. Courage? Commander, I don't think you understand what happened here. Enlighten me, Keth replied, settling into the chair across from her. Explain to me how 10 researchers and 1 security officer held off an entire fleet for 3 days. That's just it, Lisa said, her voice carrying a weight that made Keth's blood run cold. You didn't fight our military, you didn't fight our soldiers. You fought a bunch of scientists who had never seen combat before last week. The interrogator leaned forward, his scanner devices analyzing every micro-expression on the human's face. She's telling the truth, Commander, no deception indicators. Keth felt something cold settle in his chest. You're saying this was not a military installation? Military installation? Lisa's eyes widened with what might have been genuine surprise. Commander, we were studying soil composition. Our most dangerous piece of equipment was a rock crusher. Blake wasn't even real security. He was hired to keep us safe from the local wildlife. The silence that followed was deafening. Keth's mind raced through the implications of what he was hearing. He had committed a significant portion of the Third Fleet to assault what amounted to a research camp. The tactical brilliance he had witnessed, the improvised weapon systems, the adaptive strategies, all of it had come from civilians. The weapons, Keth said slowly, the defensive positions, the coordination. Blake had some military training from years ago, Lisa explained. Basic infantry stuff, but most of what we did was just making it up as we went along. We had mining equipment, research tools, and 3 days to figure out how to stay alive. The chief interrogator's devices began beeping frantically. Commander, her stress levels are actually decreasing as she talks about this. This is not fabrication or battlefield confusion. She genuinely believed she was part of a civilian research team. Keth stood abruptly, pacing to the chamber's far wall. His worst fears were crystallizing into horrible certainty. Your government, your military, they know what happened here? Lisa's expression shifted, and for the first time, Keth saw something that might have been pity in her eyes. Commander, you attacked a civilian research outpost. You killed 10 scientists and a security guard. Do you really think humanity is going to let that slide? This was a legitimate military target. Keth snapped, but even as he said it, he knew. It wasn't true. The evidence was overwhelming, the facility's configuration, the equipment manifests, the personnel records. Nothing about the outpost suggested military significance. You want to know what Blake told us on the second day? Lisa continued, her voice steady despite the tears beginning to form in her eyes. He said that if we were real soldiers, if we were even a scout unit, your fleet would already be running. He said we were just buying time for the real military to respond. The interrogator's equipment was now emitting a steady alarm. Commander, she's exhibiting signs of genuine grief mixed with, I'm reading something that might be anticipation or satisfaction. Keth turned back to face the human prisoner. What aren't you telling me? Lisa met his gaze directly. You want to know what a real human military response looks like. Check your long-range sensors, Commander. Check them now. The dread that had been building in Keth's chest exploded into full-blown panic. He activated his communicator. Bridge, long-range sensor sweep, maximum range, all vectors. The response came within moments. and the words that emerged from the speaker changed everything. "Commander, we're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures. Large formations, approaching from 3 different vectors. Estimate time to contact, 18 hours. Kef's legs nearly gave out beneath him. 18 hours. The human military was coming, and he had just learned that his great victory had been against a handful of scientists armed with mining equipment and desperation. How many ships? He whispered into his communicator. Double quote, sir. Preliminary count. Suggests over 300 vessels. And Commander? They're not slowing down. 72 hours earlier, Dr. Mills had been examining sediment samples when the first energy blasts lit up the sky above. Research Station Echo. The morning had started like any other on the remote world of Kepler-7 coffee, data analysis, and the quiet satisfaction of scientific discovery. Now as alien ships descended through the atmosphere like mechanical locusts, that peaceful routine seemed like a memory from another lifetime. "Blake!" Mills shouted over the growing roar of engines. "Blake, what are those?" "Security Chief Blake." Emerged from the communications building, his face grim as he studied the tactical display on his portable unit. At 42, Blake had the weathered look of someone who had seen military service, though his current job involved little more than keeping curious researchers from wandering into dangerous terrain. "Vorthan Empire ships," Blake said, his voice carrying the calm authority that had made him perfect for this job. "Looks like a full battle group. They're not here to talk." Dr. Stone ran up from the geology lab, her equipment still clutched in her hands. "Are we evacuating? Is there a shuttle coming?" Blake's expression told them everything they needed to know. "Communications are jammed. They hit the orbital relay first. We're on our own." The first bombardment began 10 minutes later. Energy. Beams lanced down from orbit, systematically destroying what the aliens clearly believed were defensive installations. The fusion generator went first, then the communications array, then the vehicle depot. Each explosion shook the ground beneath their feet and sent the 10 researchers scrambling for cover. "They're not trying to glass the planet," Blake observed, watching the pattern of destruction from the dubious safety of the main lab. "They want something intact. That gives us time." "Time for what?" demanded Dr. Gray, the team's xenobiologist. "We're scientists, not soldiers." Blake's smile was hard as steel. "Then it's time to learn." The first 24 hours were a masterclass in improvised warfare. Blake had the researchers inventory every piece of equipment in the station, looking for anything that could be weaponized. The mining charges became orbital bombardment deterrents, carefully positioned to create debris fields that would discourage low-level attack runs. The atmospheric processors were reconfigured to generate electromagnetic pulses that could disrupt alien sensors and communications. Dr. Mills, whose specialty was particle physics, found herself staring at the research station's compact accelerator with new eyes. "Blake, if we can modify the containment field and reverse the polarity on the magnetic bottles... Can you turn it into a weapon?" Blake asked. "I can turn it into a cannon," Mills replied, his academic excitement overriding his terror. "It won't have much range, but anything that hits... Do it." The aliens' first ground assault came on the second day. Vorthan shock troops, each standing 7 feet tall and armed with energy weapons that could cut through solid rock, advanced on the research station expecting to find scattered, defenseless humans. Instead, they found a killing ground. Blake had positioned the researchers in carefully prepared positions, using the station's modular buildings to create overlapping fields of fire. The mining equipment had been repurposed into mobile weapons platforms. The geological survey drones had been converted into guided missiles. Every tool designed for peaceful exploration had been transformed into an instrument of war. "Remember," Blake called out over the improvised communication system, "we're not trying to win. We're trying to survive long enough for help to arrive." The battle raged for 6 hours. The humans fought with a desperation that surprised even Blake, who had seen combat before. Dr. Stone used her knowledge of chemistry to create explosive compounds from laboratory supplies. Dr. Gray's understanding of alien biology helped them target the Vorthan's weak points. Dr. Mills' particle accelerator punched through alien armor like it was made of paper. By the end of the second day, The aliens had lost over 20 aircraft and 300 ground troops. The humans had lost Dr. Rodriguez, the team's atmospheric specialist, and Dr. Kim, who had volunteered to operate the most exposed mining platform. 8 of us left, Blake reported during their brief respite. We've cost them more than any of us should have been able to. Is that supposed to make us feel better? Dr. Stone asked, exhaustion making her voice raw. It's supposed to make you proud, Blake replied. You want to know what a real military unit would have done to these aliens by now. They'd have been running after the first day, but you're not soldiers. You're something else entirely. The third day brought orbital bombardment. The aliens had clearly decided that ground assault was too costly. Blake gathered the survivors in the most reinforced section of the main lab, where the original research data was stored. This is it, he said simply. They're done playing games. Dr. Mills looked up from the particle accelerator controls. Blake, I can overload the containment field. Create a feedback loop that will take out anything within a kilometer radius. Including us, Blake noted. Including us, Mills confirmed. Blake nodded. Then let's make sure they remember what happens when you mess with humans. The final explosion could be seen from orbit, a pillar of fire that rose into the sky like humanity's defiant middle finger raised against the universe. When the smoke cleared, Research Station Echo was gone, along with its 10 defenders, but their message had been sent, and humanity was listening. Commander Kef stood in the intelligence briefing room aboard the Dominator, staring at holographic displays that painted a picture of his civilization's impending doom. The data streaming in from Vorthan intelligence networks across the galaxy created a mosaic of information that grew more terrifying with each passing hour. Tell me about human military doctrine, Kef said to Intelligence Chief Narm, his voice barely above a whisper. Narm's tentacles manipulated the holographic controls, bringing up a comprehensive analysis of human military structure. Commander, what we discovered is both fascinating and horrifying. Humans organize their military forces in a hierarchical system that defies conventional logic. The display showed the basic structure of human military organization. At the bottom were individual soldiers, organized into squads, platoons, companies, battalions, regiments, and divisions. But it was the specialized units that made Kef's blood run cold. These scout units you mentioned, Kef said, pointing to a section of the display. Explain them. Scout units are reconnaissance forces, Commander. Their primary purpose is to gather intelligence, conduct surveillance, and provide early warning of enemy movements. They are specifically trained to avoid direct combat whenever possible. Kef felt his world tilting. Avoid combat? That's correct, sir. According to our intelligence, scout units are taught to observe, report, and retreat. They are not intended to engage in prolonged battles against superior forces. Sub-Commander Vex entered the briefing room, his 4 eyes wide with panic. Commander, we've received additional intelligence from our deep cover operatives in human space. The news is disturbing. Show me, Kef commanded. The holographic display shifted to show intercepted human military communications. The translation scrolled across the screen in the flowing script of the Vorthan language, but the meaning was clear in any tongue. Priority. Alert. Civilian Research Station Echo destroyed by unknown hostile forces. All personnel confirmed killed. Recommend immediate deployment of 3rd Battle Fleet to investigate and respond. Classification: war crime. Kef's mandibles clicked frantically. War crime? We attacked a legitimate target. Commander, Narm said quietly, according to human military law, attacking civilian research installations is considered a war crime. The equivalent would be if humans attacked one of our agricultural colonies or scientific outposts. The implications crashed over Kef like a tidal wave. He had not only failed to engage human military forces, he had committed what humans considered an act of terrorism against civilian targets. The research station had been the human equivalent of a farming community or a university completely non-military, protected under the conventions of civilized warfare. There's more, Commander, Vex said, his voice trembling. Our operatives report that the human military is mobilizing on a scale not seen since their Great War 2 centuries ago. They're calling it Operation Righteous Fury, New data flooded the display. Human naval yards were working around the clock. Reserve fleets were being activated. Military personnel were being recalled from leave across human space. The mobilization was massive, systematic, and focused on a single objective: finding and destroying the force that had attacked Research Station Echo. "How many ships are they sending?" Keth asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Initial deployment appears to be 12 battle fleets, Commander. Approximately 2,000 vessels of various classes." The number hung in the air like a death sentence. Keth's third fleet consisted of 600 ships, and they had already lost nearly 50 in the assault on the research station. The humans were sending a force more than 3 times larger than his entire command. "Sir," Narm continued, "there's something else. Our analysis of the human response suggests this is not their full military capability. Intelligence indicates they're holding significant forces in reserve, protecting their core worlds and strategic installations. You're saying they can afford to send 12 fleets after us while maintaining defensive positions elsewhere?" "That's correct, Commander. Our estimates suggest a total human military strength may exceed 10,000 vessels." The briefing room fell silent. 10,000 ships. The entire Vorthan Empire's military might consisted of roughly 8,000 vessels spread across dozens of star systems. The humans were fielding a force larger than the Empire's entire navy, and they were doing it as a punitive expedition against a single fleet. "Commander," Vex said, his voice barely audible, "we need to consider the possibility that we have significantly underestimated human military capabilities." Keth turned to study the tactical display showing the approaching human formations. 3 separate fleets, approaching from different vectors, timing their arrival to prevent any possibility of escape. The precision of the maneuver spoke to a level of military sophistication that the Empire's intelligence services had completely failed to detect. "How did we miss this?" Keth asked. "How did our intelligence networks fail to identify the true scope of human military power?" "I believe, Commander, that humans deliberately concealed their capabilities," Nam replied. "They allowed us to see what they wanted us to see: small patrol fleets, limited military presence in border regions, peaceful research stations. They made us believe they were a minor power, barely worthy of attention. The strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. By appearing weak, humanity had avoided the attention of major powers like the Vorthan Empire. They had been free to develop their military capabilities without interference, building a force that could challenge the greatest civilizations in the galaxy. And now we've given them a reason to reveal their true strength," Keth said. "Yes, Commander, and I fear we may have awakened something that was better left sleeping." As if summoned by their conversation, the communications officer's voice crackled through the briefing room speakers. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the lead human fleet. They're demanding our immediate and unconditional surrender." Keth closed his eyes, finally understanding the magnitude of his mistake. He had not won a glorious victory against human forces. He had committed a war crime against civilian scientists, and now the full weight of human military might was descending upon his fleet like the wrath of angry gods. "Sir?" Vex asked. "Your orders?" Keth opened his eyes, staring at the display, showing the positions of the approaching human fleets. There was no escape, no tactical solution, no clever maneuver that could save his command from the consequences of his actions. "Prepare for battle," he said quietly, "and may the ancestors forgive us for what we have brought upon the Empire." The human fleet materialized from hyperspace like a steel constellation, each vessel a testament to humanity's hidden military might. Commander Keth watched from the bridge of the Dominator as 300 ships arranged themselves in perfect formation, their weapons systems already charging for combat. "Fleet Admiral Sarah Chun of the Human Colonial Navy," came the transmission, the voice crisp and professional despite the circumstances. "You are responsible for the unprovoked attack on Research Station Echo and the murder of 10 civilian scientists. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences." Keth activated his transmitter with trembling hands. "This is Commander Keth of the Vorthan Third Fleet. We were operating under the assumption that your facility was a military installation. The silence that followed stretched for long moments. When Admiral Chun's voice returned, it carried a coldness that made Keth's blood freeze. "Commander, our records indicate that Research Station Echo was clearly marked as a civilian scientific facility. It was registered with the Galactic Research Council and openly published its findings in academic journals. Are you seriously claiming that your intelligence services were unaware of its non-military nature?" Keth's communications officer looked at him with barely concealed panic. The human was right, of course. The intelligence briefings had been hastily prepared, based on incomplete data and aggressive assumptions. The Empire's expansion into this sector had been driven by arrogance rather than careful planning. "Admiral," Keth said, his voice carrying the weight of desperate honesty, we made a mistake. A terrible mistake." "Yes, Commander, you did. The question now is whether you're going to compound that mistake by forcing us to destroy your entire fleet." On the tactical display, Keth could see the human formations shifting with mechanical precision. Each ship moved with a purpose that spoke to countless hours of training and coordination. These were not the patrol boats and research vessels that Empire intelligence had catalogued. These were ships of war, designed and built by a civilization that understood conflict on a scale the Empire had never imagined. "Sir," whispered Sub-Commander Vex, "our tactical analysis suggests that each of their vessels is significantly more advanced than our own. Their formation patterns indicate battle experience that we lack." The horrible truth was becoming clear. The Empire had been expanding into what they believed was a region of space, populated by minor powers and primitive civilizations. Instead, they had stumbled into the territory of a military superpower that had been deliberately concealing its true capabilities. "Admiral Chun," Keth said, his voice barely steady, "what are your terms?" "Complete and immediate surrender of all vessels. Your crews will be taken into custody, pending a full investigation of war crimes. Your ships will be impounded as evidence. You will provide all intelligence regarding Empire military capabilities and territorial claims." The terms were harsh, but not unexpected. Keth had studied human military history during his preparation for this sector assignment. Humans had a concept they called proportional response, the idea that retaliation should match the severity of the original offense. The murder of 10 civilian scientists warranted a strong response, but humanity was offering his crews a chance to survive. "And if we refuse?" Keth asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then you will discover why the rest of the galaxy has learned not to target human civilians." The display screen shifted to show new contacts appearing on the edge of the system. More human ships, arriving in waves that seemed to have no end. Keth watched in growing horror as the tactical count climbed past 500 vessels, then 600, then 700. "My God," whispered the sensor officer. "Sir, they're still coming." Multiple fleet formations, arriving from different vectors. Admiral Chun's voice cut through the chaos on the bridge. "Commander, what you're seeing is the first wave of Operation Righteous Fury. We have identified the location of your home fleet bases, your supply lines, and your strategic objectives in this sector. At this moment, similar forces are moving against every Empire installation within 50 light years of this system." Keth felt his legs give out, and he collapsed into his command chair. The Empire had sent the Third Fleet as a reconnaissance in force, a probe to test human defenses and identify targets for future conquest. Instead, they had triggered a human military response that would cripple Empire expansion efforts across an entire sector of space. "How many ships?" Keth asked weakly. "Approximately 4,000 vessels are currently engaged in operations against Empire forces, Commander. We consider this a proportional response to your unprovoked aggression. 4,000 ships. The Finta. Empire's entire military consisted of 8,000 vessels, and humanity had deployed half that number in response to the attack on a single research station. The implication was staggering if humans could field 4,000 ships as a rapid response force. What was the size of their full military?" "Sir," Vex said quietly, "we're receiving reports from across the sector. Human forces are attacking every Empire installation simultaneously. They're not just responding to our attack, they're eliminating our entire presence in this region of space." The tactical display now showed the true scope of the human response. Battle fleets were striking at military bases, supply depots, and communication relays across dozens of star systems. The Empire's expansion into human space was being systematically dismantled with a precision that spoke to months of planning. "You've been watching us," Keth said, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. "You've been tracking our movements, mapping our installations, preparing for this moment." "Commander," Admiral Chun replied, her voice carrying a note of grim satisfaction. "Did you really think we would allow a hostile power to establish military bases in our territory without taking appropriate precautions?" The scope of the deception was breathtaking. While the Empire had been cataloging what they believed were weak human defenses, humanity had been conducting intelligence operations of their own. They had identified every Empire vessel, tracked every supply convoy, and mapped every strategic installation. When the Empire finally revealed their aggressive intentions by attacking Research Station Echo, humanity had been ready to respond with overwhelming force. "Your answer, Commander," Admiral Chin said. "Surrender or learn why civilized species don't target human civilians." Keth looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. They were good soldiers, warriors who had served the Empire faithfully across dozens of campaigns. They didn't deserve to die for his mistakes. "Third Fleet surrenders," he said, his voice barely audible. "All ships, stand down weapons and prepare for boarding." As the human ships moved to take custody of his fleet, Keth realized that the Empire's expansion into this sector was over before it had truly begun. They had awakened something that was better left sleeping, provoked a response that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. The 10 humans who had died at Research Station Echo had been scientists, not soldiers. But their sacrifice had revealed to the galaxy that humanity was far more than the minor power they appeared to be. They were a civilization that could project military force across interstellar distances, that could coordinate operations involving thousands of vessels, that could respond to aggression with a precision and overwhelming force that made the key. Empire's military looked like children playing with toys. Commander Keth had wanted to win a glorious victory against human forces. Instead, he had learned why the rest of the galaxy had learned to leave humanity alone. And now the Empire would learn that lesson too.